again another one of the episodes of our podcast. Thanks to our beautiful audience, to our followers. Thanks for showing up. We are very excited to share these incredible stories with you and also to share a narrative, right? To share who Latinos are, how we make the U.S. better, how we empower with our own leadership, everything that happens in this country. And so continuing with that, we have a very special guest today. There are many leaders and necessary leaders in our community, and they are very important, each one of them. But not everybody uses their voice to empower our community. And you don't have to do it, but when you do it, you're part of this podcast. And in the case of our guest today, Congressman Gil Cisneros, he's one of those people. He's dedicated his life, all through his life, not only in the latest part of his life, but all of his life, to empower this country, to empower his community. And we're going to talk today about the things that you may or may not know, things that are not in his resume, things that he'll share from his own experience. And I hope that you enjoy everything that the congressman will share with us as much as I enjoy it every time I get together with him. I consider Congressman Cisneros my friend. And when I meet with him, every time I have the opportunity to be in D.C., I just learned something new. And it's really incredible. So with that, please help me welcome Congressman Gil Cisneros.
Hello, Anna. How are you?
I'm doing well. I want to, well, first of all, tell the audience, I'm sure everybody knows it, but you grew up in Southern California.
Hmm.
So
Yes,
you're,
yes.
that's amazing. I didn't grow up here, but I have been here for 29 years. So I'm a fanatic of this area. But you were born and raised here. You served in the Navy. You're a
Hmm.
veteran.
Yes.
You've had very important positions at the Pentagon, representing veterans, and we're going to talk about it. And then suddenly you navigated into this new world that you and your beautiful wife didn't expect to be part of. And so overnight, your life changed. And I think I want to start a little bit with that, even though that's not the beginning of your serving career,
Right.
because it really changed everything, right? And you've been one of the people within our community that has been more outspoken about this specific situation. Some of the people in our community that have been lucky to have gone through what you went through are very private, and they've done
Hmm.
it in, I understand their motives, but unfortunately that doesn't allow us a window into what it is to have been lucky enough to win the lottery. So but let's start with that, even though that's not the beginning of your service. Tell us about it. And again, I'm going to stop talking, but I just read an article that People Magazine made on you and your family, and I recommend the audience to look it up. It's People Magazine, December 10, 2025. Amazing article. It's inspirational. It makes me extremely proud to be your friend and to be part of your community. So tell us about it. Tell us about that incredible change in your life that happened just some years ago.
Well, thank you, Anna. And look, 2010, like Jackie and I, we had just gone to dinner. We were coming back, and she used to like to play these games. We would call it the what if games, right? Like, what if we could do this, or what if we could do that, or if we bought a house, where would we live? Um, and so we actually just happened. We were driving through Whittier, and we drove right past the California lottery office, and she asked, like, what would you do if we won? What would you want to do if we won the lottery? And usually I didn't like to play along with these games, but this time I kind of did. And I told her I would want to start a foundation where we can kind of help kids, focus on education and help them find a path to college, because I know how much education changed my life and created opportunity for me. Um, and I wanted some people to have that same opportunity. Uh, and so, that was kind of what we talked about. And fortunately for us, I think God was listening that day, and And, 2 weeks later, we ended up winning the lottery. And so we kind of, later on, we actually looked at each other and said, okay, now we need to start that foundation. So, we started the Gilbert and Jackie Cisneros Foundation, focused on education, really kind of like college access programs, scholarships. We partnered with other organizations like, we created a scholarship in Jackie's grandfather's name in the city of Pico Rivera. We endowed scholarships at our alma maters. We did some stuff with the kids of veterans, the Navy Supply Corps Foundation. And then eventually later on, we started the Cisneros Hispanic Leadership Institute at my alma mater, George Washington, to really kind of help, Latino students that ended up at GW, to make sure that they would have the supports and infrastructure that they needed to help them be successful and graduate. Because, I've seen it, right? I've seen it back, after we had our first scholarship, we had a student that got homesick and went home, and we had another one who just had too much fun. But then, I thought back, yeah, but I thought back to when I was a student too, right? And I was kind of hearing the same. I remember when I was a senior in college talking to a lady who was a young woman who was her first year there at GW, talking about how she was going to just go back home because she didn't feel like she fit in, and she was from Texas. But she said, I don't feel like I fit in here. I feel like I need to go back home. And I felt like she was really kind of giving up an opportunity there. And unfortunately, what we found was like, 25 plus years later, right, not much had changed for a lot of students. And so we wanted to create that infrastructure at GW. And that's part of the reason why we started the Leadership Institute. And it's been great, right? I think this is something that has allowed us to kind of be proactive and do that. And look, we didn't know any better. Like you said, right? We had kind of had that voice. We kind of created it. We tried to do that, but we just assumed that's what you did when you became rich. Is that you gave money away and tried to help the less fortunate and kind of really, help, pick people up by their bootstraps and kind of give them an opportunity. I always felt like I was very fortunate in my life, kind of growing up. I was the first in my family to go to college. It's just some little thing, right? Somebody just said, I ended up applying for this program in the Navy that eventually led to an ROTC scholarship. But if the individual that I was talking to at that time had never said, hey, you should think about this program and apply for it, I never would have done it. And, it changed my life. And so, yeah. But so we kind of wanted to do that same thing and kind of create opportunity for individuals. And that's kind of what we've done. And now, for 15 years, that's been part of what we've been doing. And, it's something we'll continue to do for the rest of our lives, to kind of really support the youth and really kind of help create opportunities for other people so that they can hopefully do the same for other people later on too.
Exactly. But Gil, you're being very modest, and I know other information that I hope you are okay with me sharing. But first of all, you actually opened your foundation before you even thought about buying a new house or buying a new car. You were professionals, so you were middle class. It's not that you were poor, but you definitely had an old car. And you were between jobs, and it was, this would represented a huge change in your lifestyle. And much before you thought about it, you actually opened this foundation.
Well, we
really,
needed the money first, right, to kind of do it. So I guess it wasn't, but it was really along the same lines. When we started planning for everything, I think we were very methodical in our approach and how we were going to do this, right? It's and that's the thing that, some people are like, wow, you've avoided the curse. But I think we took an educational approach and a methodical approach to how we were going to do this, right? We looked for people that could help us. We talked to lawyers about our estate planning, but always part of that at the beginning was, okay, we're also creating the foundation too. And so, so that kind of went along in line with everything else that we were doing as far as, like I said, creating our estate plan, doing what we needed to do, but we also created the foundation at the same time And then once we did get the money, we were able to kind of found that or fund it, and we put
Yep.
$20 million into it.
That's amazing. I think so. First of all, how incredible that after serving in the Navy, you decide to go to school and with your scholarship,
Mhm.
right? You go to school, and that makes you a much better recipient of this lottery, right? Just from investing those 4 years in college, you were already a much better recipient because you knew what to do with it. Jackie knew what to do with it because she also went to
Mm.
college.
Yeah.
And so that was important. I think that this is important also for the audience to understand that wealth doesn't work by itself. You need to be prepared to
Right.
manage this. And you need to be
Yeah.
prepared not only with your profession, but also with your mission and your values. You were prepared. You talked 2 weeks before about what to do with that money to create a change.
Hmm.
That was important. And again,
Yeah.
talking about your, like your modesty, if you may, people should know that you donated $10 million to your alma mater. I was there.
Hmm. Yeah.
You invited me, you and Jackie invited me to the inauguration of this incredible initiative that you founded in your alma mater. And, there was this beautiful luncheon at the chancellor's home to thank you for it. And I remember when you cut the ribbon, it was just hope, right? You were obviously
Yeah.
investing a lot of money,
Hmm.
but it was hope. And look at what you've done.
Yeah. No, look, I got to give credit to the executive director, Dr. Elizabeth Vaccaro, who's really kind of been there almost since the beginning. Initially, when we first got it going, there was an interim director, but then she kind of was the first. She's really been the really only first and continuing executive director who's really kind of got it going and really is taking care of the students and made sure that they are successful in their studies and doing they need. And she hasn't lost one yet, right? And so, but yet she's also been able to kind of build up the research part of it too. They've been able to do events and things that they're also doing. But it is, I give credit to her for that. We just, I don't know, a lot of people don't know this too, right? Is that the actual idea actually came to me when I was in grad school, kind of talking about this, and it was actually my grad school kind of project that I worked on.
No.
Yeah.
Oh my
So,
God, I didn't know that,
yeah.
Gil.
Yeah, like I said, people talk about the lottery and everything and life changing, but for me, what the life changing moment in my life was my education because it put me on a totally different trajectory for my life and career and things that I wanted to do and and it created opportunity for me that just that nobody that I knew at that time had that type of opportunity or to do things you wanted. I went and earned an MBA, and then later on, I went back and after we had won the money, I went back to school again because I felt like I needed a better background of kind of how
I was
to
going to say that.
look at interest and to look at research and things, right? How can we best use the resources that we had to make sure that they're going to be effective and kind of work with programs that we know that are actually producing and not just coming with a sob story, but really kind of, actually getting a return on your investment, that you're making, which is when you make a donation, that's really what you're doing, right? So I went back to grad school and got a degree in urban education policy, but my
I
capstone
remember
project,
at Brown,
yeah, yes,
Brown
yes,
University, of course.
right, right. But my capstone project was the Cisneros Hispanic Leadership Institute and coming up with that idea and really kind of creating that support infrastructure for the students, both, from an executive director, but also from the students too, right? The upperclassmen help, the underclassmen and kind of create some stability for them and become a resource for them.
Yep.
Everything from, well, what professor should I take to, how do I navigate this? And it's worked out well. And so even our summer program that we have at the Institute, right, was part of the project that we had. But it was pretty, I will say, pretty amazing to kind of see something that you kind of create and kind of think of and imagine to actually bring it to fruition and see it. We just had our 10-year anniversary at the Institute, and it's nice to know that it's still going and kicking.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's made every student that I know that is Latino that has gone to George Washington University that I
Mhm.
speak to have been part of it. Just
Mhm.
going there, just physically knowing that there's that place makes a huge difference. And another place that you've founded and you've created is that media center at USC, which is the alma mater of Jackie, your wife.
Well,
You
we
also,
didn't create we didn't create the media center, but we helped make it. We made some donations to help kind of fund that. And if Jackie
you have a
had a
big
career
sign
in
that says,
yeah, Jackie had a career in television news. And if you ever go to the newsroom in the Annenberg building there at
yes.
USC, you will see a giant desk with our name on it because it's the assignment desk, and that's what Jackie did when she worked in television news, and that was something that she wanted to do. And like and we have we have scholarships over there at USC too. We just had I had a young man that was one of our scholarship recipients that graduated. He's writing for Rolling Stone magazine right now. He came out and actually spoke to some of the USC. We hosted a dinner for some of the USC DC students that come every summer. He
Oh,
was yeah he came out and spoke to them and kind of gave out his thoughts and everything and how his career has progressed. From his time at USC to like him now kind of being a professional journalist. And actually,
yeah.
he was probably the one that advocate. He used to work at People magazine, and he advocated for that article that was just
Oh,
that
wow.
yeah.
Fantastic piece. He did a fantastic job.
Yeah, well, he didn't write it, but he was the one who advocated to like, hey,
Yeah. He made it
you all should
happen.
do this. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Gil, we shouldn't forget also the scholarship that you created with the Latino Donor Collaborative for the
Hmm.
AFI, the American Film Institute, for Latino students.
Hmm.
And that
Yeah.
also, existed for a while. We put you put, through your funding, the LDC was able to put some people through it, and it also, worked on changing the landscape of media, which, as we know, is not ever, it hasn't been before, fair to the importance that the Latino community has. So you've done so much. I think that we would not finish if we just went through everything that you've done. But this is the product of the incredible lucky moment, right, of winning the lottery. But I would love to actually talk about how you've evolved, how
Uh-huh.
I've seen you evolving. I didn't meet you before you had the lottery, but you've shared, some parts of of your life. But then I saw you evolving physically,
Yeah.
evolving politically,
Hmm.
evolving as a dad, because you didn't have kids
Yeah.
when you got that lottery, and when when I met you. So I would love to address those three, and maybe we should start with you and Jackie became parents and
Yeah.
how that
Well,
really changed your life.
no, I think everything is like life changing, right? When you have kids, when you graduate from college, when you do different things, it all kind of puts you on a different path than you were going before. But, I say I am an old dad, you know, we had, uh, the boys are 11 years old now. When they were born, I was 43. Um, and
Amazing.
that, yeah, so it's kind of funny. It's like people I went to high school with and other people I knew, or their kids were like going into college, and mine were just being born. And
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. But that happens to a lot of people now. It's much more common every day, don't you think?
yeah, yeah, people do have, I think, kids later in life nowadays more
Yeah.
common than they did. I mean, I think my grandmother had her first child at 15. My mom, I think, was 19 when she had me. It's just different times, right? So, but
Different times. Thank
it
God.
yeah, but becoming a father was really something that I think was instrumental in really kind of trying to get healthy, right? Because when we had met, when we first met, I was a big guy. I was kind of pushing the scales, and to be honest with you, I didn't know how much I weighed because I didn't want to get on the scale and look, but I remember when they were born and they were young and just kind of trying to play with them and really get on the floor. I mean, it was a struggle to get on the floor and trying to get back up. And I'm like, I can't do this, right? I gotta, I'm older already. I can't go through this where I can't be able to do anything with them. And so I kind of made the commitment to kind of get in shape and do what I needed to do. I did, use medicine, or I shouldn't say medicine, but medical procedure. I did have gastric bypass surgery.
Mhm.
Um,
That's
that
very
kind of helped me.
successful.
Yeah, which helped me lose, the weight, and I think I lost about 190 pounds.
Oh my God.
Um,
That's
yeah,
crazy.
and and again, right, it just doing that and being able to do that kind of created other opportunities for me to do. I would, well, I tore my meniscus now, so I didn't do it last year, but I ran the Army 10 miler a couple times. I ran some 10K races, things that I couldn't have done, when you
Hmm.
first met me.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I've kind of
Absolutely.
used that, I have a commit. I know I used to go to the gym when I was big, but it was almost like I was just kind of going through the motions to say that I go to the gym.
Yeah.
Now I
Exactly.
feel
Yeah.
like when I go to the gym, I'm like actually like at it and kind of working and striving, to stay in shape and but I don't think I would have done that if I didn't have the boys, right? So they've kind of helped me along that stage to kind of really help me get healthy. But it is, they keep me sharp too, right? It is fun kind of doing there. It's fun to kind of watch them grow up. They're twins, but it's just fun to kind of watch how they have two totally different personalities. They're fraternal, so they don't look alike. And when you look at them, they're like one is really tall
I
and
remember that. Yeah. There's.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
yeah,
It
one
looks
is
like
really
one is
tall and
the
the other one not so much. But one of them
right.
really likes sports. The other one kind of likes to act and sing, and but it's just fun, and they got good sense of humors, and it's just they're fun to be around. And I took them to school this morning, and we usually do this thing, we do random song choice where everybody gets to pick a song as we go around the car, like everybody has their turn, and it's just they've kind of introduced me to kind of now I got songs that that they request and things like that get stuck in my head, and I'm
Exactly.
singing all the time. So they
Now
they keep me
you're updated in your tastes of music.
yeah, they do. And but they keep me young, and one of the things I almost feel like I got to start as they're starting to get into more complicated math. I'm like, oh, do I think I need to do a refresher
Wow.
so I could so when the questions start coming, like, Dad, can you help me out at that? I just don't stare at the page and go like, yeah, no.
Now they're keeping you. I'm sure you're thinking about going back to third grade.
Well, no, they're like in sixth grade now, so I need to go. I need to start restart working on seventh and eighth grade stuff to kind of get ahead of them. Yeah,
Oh my God, they're so big. Oh my God, Gail,
yeah,
I remember that when Jackie was pregnant. That's
hmm
crazy.
yeah.
That's crazy. Well, they're lucky to have those parents, that's for sure. I also remember, and as an anecdote, we had a meeting and with all our friends, right? And we were in Chicago. I don't know if you remember, Gil. And it was when you just had that procedure. And we got into the meeting, and one of our friends texted me and say, "Who's the guy in front of me? Is it a new board member?" And I'm like, "It's Gil." And then he stands up and is like, "Gil," and everybody's like, "Oh, that's you." I mean, literally, people were not your friends were not recognizing you. That's the
Yeah.
big transformation that you
I
had.
think that might have been Oscar Munoz because I know every
It was
time I
Oscar
kind of run
Hernandez.
into him, he always kind of says, he actually had me share that story. So when I was at the Pentagon, he was actually part of a committee there to kind of help the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, for some of the procedures business wise. And so we were at a meeting, and I was speaking there in front of them, telling them what we do and personnel and readiness. And he kind of stood up and said, "Gil, tell him about how you transformed, your body, right, and
Exactly.
everything." So he
Absolutely. He was our
yeah,
host, remember? We were at the United Airlines
United
offices
Airlines,
in
right?
Sears
Yeah.
Tower. Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It was so funny. And he was not the only one that didn't recognize you. Everybody was like, "Oh, that's him." I mean,
Yeah.
that's how incredibly transformational, because besides, you did it in such a good way that it didn't look like what they say today, like an Ozempic loss of
Mhm.
weight. It
Right.
was just a very healthy, like it just, you looked like 10 years or 15 years younger. And but that was it. It was just
Mhm.
a change of volume, but not your face was great and everything. So
No,
um
thank
it,
you.
it was
Thank you.
it was really fun. I remember that. And it's so funny because, well, first of all, your kids make you smarter. You're absolutely right. And then you miss them. My kids now are, out of the house,
Mhm.
and you miss them because they keep you updated in everything. And so every
Right.
time they come back for holidays or for vacations, I try to like soak up that knowledge and so enjoy them, because you have some years left, but believe me, it goes very, very fast.
Oh no, I mean this first 11 years, it seems like it's just flown by, right? And they're halfway there, right? They're in the sixth grade now. They're gonna 6 more years. They're gonna graduate from college.
Yeah.
I mean, graduate from high school. But
Yep.
you be off and then
And then
off to
from college.
college, right?
Yeah.
But it
And then
is,
from college.
yeah,
That
it's gonna go like that. So yeah,
absolutely enjoy that.
but
But
we treasure every moment.
absolutely, please do, because
Mhm.
I used to hear people telling me that, and I was like, I'm so tired. Yes, I enjoy, and of course, we all enjoy it, but we're also
Mhm.
tired. And
Right.
and now I just treasure so much the 2 weeks that I get with them, or the week that I get with them, because yeah, that's it's a different thing, and we're happy to see them independent, but and you worked for that,
Mhm.
but it's also a two-way street. So anyway, but I wanted to, so in that physical transformation that you had, I also saw a political transformation, a very
Mhm.
positive one, but a political transformation. Like, I remember when you first, said that you wanted to run, and people were, very surprised, because of course running and then, serving is so demanding of your time and your energy, and you really didn't need to do it, but you
Mhm.
did. And so I'd love you to tell us, first of all, that point, and how did that point came to you, but also the evolution that you've had. I feel like your politics also have evolved in this 8 years, and you have evolved as a leader. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's I consider myself a moderate, right? But I've kind of I feel like I've always been there, right? But I have kind of, I think, transformed in the political spectrum, maybe become a little bit more liberal over time. Um,
Mhm.
but running for office was never anything that I thought. Even though I was a political science major, and some people always say like, "Oh yeah, sure, you never wanted to run. Then why did you major in political science?" I just always I did always enjoy politics. But then I kind of, like you said, I went and got an MBA, and I was kind of doing business things. That was never really kind of, the political thing was never really something that I wanted into. But, you know, as I said earlier, right, we got into this thing about education and really kind of supporting it. And how can we, I thought it was wrong that a lot of kids were still having the same obstacles that I had, a couple decades earlier. And it shouldn't be like that. Um, my hope was like around 2016 that, I thought Hillary Clinton was going to win. And then I was going to push and advocate to be part of, they had a committee, which was Hispanics and the White House Initiatives for Hispanics and Education. And really, that was my goal. That was kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a seat at the table to be kind of say what we should be focusing on and how we should kind of be moving the Latino community forward. Um, because this with the LDC, right? Saul talks a lot about it with the economy and GDP and how much we contribute to GDP, but academically, we are never going to get where this nation is going to be number one in the world again academically, unless
Yep.
we create opportunities and help the Latino population kind of get there, and really kind of push them towards it. Well, I don't want to say push, but kind of give them that opportunity so where they can go to college and and everything. At that time, it was, I think there was only about 13% of Latinos had a college degree. And then when you start talking graduate degrees, it was going down to like 4%. So this was really kind of the thing that was driving me. But then after she lost, um, there was no Republican Hispanic initiatives for, Hispanics in education. Get, that did not continue during the first Trump administration. And
Yep.
so I kind of thought, like, what else can I do? What more can I do? How can I continue to contribute and kind of, um, be part of hopefully the change that this nation needs for it to be successful? And
Right.
so I kind of talked to some people, and I kind of threw the idea of, what do you think about me running for Congress? And you know, some people liked it. My wife Jackie was not happy. It was not crazy about it, but she
Enough.
came. She came around. She came around, and so that's what ended up happening, and it kind of really took me on another different path right there that I had never really kind of thought I would be doing, but I I just felt this drive and desire to keep serving and to be impactful and to do something, and that's
Yep.
kind of why I did it the first time. Mm.
And what's different between your first time as a congressman and
Hmm.
this time, Gil? Tell us a little bit.
Um, well, I will say kind of, the first time I was in the majority, and I will say this, when you're in the House of Representatives, being the majority, it's a lot funner.
Yes.
You have a lot more opportunities to kind of get things done, to kind of push forth your initiatives and things like that. Um, we were able to get a couple bills passed through the Small Business Committee with bipartisan support that we did. I think I got 11 initiatives that were tacked on to the NDAA that were part of it, that are going to help service members and their family members. So I'm proud of that we've been able to kind of do that even when we've been in the minority. But um, it is a lot funner in the majority. And I will tell you times too, it is just crazy right now. Um,
Wow. I want you to talk
it
about
is
that. I want
crazy.
to tell us. You live there. We
Yeah.
are watching from far away. You live there. Tell us.
No, it's just, there's just not, like you said, right? I'm going to be a little partisan here, right? Even though I know you said you can't, but I think,
No, no, no. You can.
yeah,
I can't, but of course you
yeah,
can. You are partisan. You're a
yeah,
Democrat.
yeah.
Absolutely
But
can.
it is crazy in the sense that sometimes it just seems like they don't really know how to govern, or that they don't really, they're good at causing chaos.
Yep.
When they were in the minority, they would do things and they could talk and they could, cause a little conflict here and there. Um, but when actually trying to get things done, it is not like they've only had 57 bills that Donald Trump has signed. That's kind of like that's like low. I think Obama had like 120 in his first year. What was I was reading? Oh, Biden had over 100 his first year. Trump even had more in his first year of his first term, but like 57 bills. I mean, it's like nothing. They just struggle to try and come up with something, and they can't even agree amongst themselves in order to kind of drive which way they're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you kind of get these things like everything from these boat strikes, which I feel are illegal, to him renaming, just the other day renaming the Kennedy Center to the Trump
Kennedy
Kennedy Center,
Center.
which he doesn't
After a
have,
living
which
president.
he which he doesn't have the ability to do. He's not able to change the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War like they're saying they did. It is very, those things were created by Congress, and the only way they can change is if Congress decides to change them. You can't just change it
Hmm.
because he wants to.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of part of the just the craziness all about
Yeah.
this, right? And
Yeah.
even this thing about he said, I'm going to give soldiers, and um, a dividend, and it's going to be non-taxable, and it's going to be $1,776 in honor of a 250th anniversary of the country. He can't just do that, right? He needs money. Congress is the one who has to, have the power of the purse. They do this. He can't just make something, uh, you know, not, tax free because he says it's going to be tax free. And then he says he's going to use the tariff money that's driving up prices for everybody, making things more expensive for everybody because he has these tariffs. He's going to use that money that he's been collecting to kind of pay this off. And he can't just do that, and that's just part of the craziness that is going on, right? And the really sad part about this is, I feel like a lot of my Republican colleagues have really kind of given up the power of the House of Representatives, the power of Congress as an equal branch of government to have oversight over the
Yeah.
executive branch. They
Yep.
forfeited that, and so they just refuse to speak up. They don't say anything. Nobody's going to say, you know, they they don't speak. We had a briefing the other day on these Venezuelan boat strikes.
Hmm.
I mean, they don't even ask questions about it, right? They don't. They just kind of stay silent, and it's just they don't even bring it up. It's just it's nuts, and they're not going to say. You'll kind of hear the mumblings there, like the rumblings, like in the corners and in the elevators. But when it comes time to saying something in public, they don't.
They don't stand up. They're
Yeah,
afraid.
yeah.
They're afraid.
Mm.
Gil, how do they, when they relinquish this authority and this duty that they
Right.
were elected to do, which is
Hmm.
to supervise the executive power, how do they conciliate that with their alleged love to the people? Because the people are suffering. Like, how do they, in their minds, in their everyday life, how is that working out for them? Or is it showing in different ways? Like how I just imagine like serving my constituents and not being able to empower them, to do my the work that they elected me to do.
Well, I think a lot of them are hearing that from their constituents, when they do town halls, and that's why a lot of them stop doing town halls because they just don't want to have to deal with it and kind of, hear the feedback. They created a healthcare crisis right now that we're in by not continuing to fund the subsidies, right?
Yep.
They've never, since 2016, Donald Trump is saying that the Affordable Care Act is horrible. We need to get rid of it. But he's never come up with a plan to kind of replace it.
Yeah.
His only alternative is as well the open market, and it'll be it'll be better for everybody, and we're going to get people money to buy their own insurance, which it's not going to work. Right? It didn't work before, so why would it work now, right? The Affordable Care Act was there to kind of, now it's not perfect. I won't tell you it's perfect, but
No, nobody thinks it's
it was
perfect.
better. We had, and like over 63% of the country likes the Affordable Care Act. And
Yeah.
so, and the fact that they got rid of these tax subsidies that would help keep the costs low, and they didn't want to renew them. It's just I don't know how they can go, and especially when, and a lot of my colleagues, Republican colleagues, have to go back to their home states, and where their constituents are the biggest users of these, of the like the Affordable Care Act, and explain to them as to why healthcare costs has gotten more expensive, right? And why they didn't support this, and there were some of the moderates that kind of signed on to the discharge position to extend the subsidies that happened just Thursday. And so now they're supposed to bring it up for a vote, but who knows when that'll happen? We're not going to be back in session until after the new year, and we'll see what happens then. But by then, the cost, December or January 1st is when all the new prices are going to take effect. And once that happens, there's no change in it.
Yeah. 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 No, that's for those of us that have, you know, a for whatever reason, an insurance that won't be affected. It's just so, even for us, it's painful. It's just,
Yeah.
it's it's just so frustrating. And again,
Mm.
I'm not saying it from a political point of view, but I'm saying it from a social impact view. And
Yeah.
it's just, it's painful. And you know what? Talking about painful, Gil, it's horrendous what we're seeing, happening to the Latino community in terms of
Hmm.
racial profiling and
Right.
what ICE is
Yeah.
doing and the efforts from Homeland Security. And I feel confident that I'm not talking about it in a political way. I'm talking about it in a civil rights, in a human rights way, right?
Yeah.
People that are citizens being targeted, abused, disappeared, kidnapped, practices from ICE that are completely out of any kind of ethic and system and available, procedure
Yeah.
that could be justified.
They're
Tell us
Gestapo
about it.
tactics. They're Gestapo
Right.
tactics that they're using. Going in there, covering themselves, not having badges, just going and rounding people up and not taking their word for it. That if they're a U.S. citizen and just rounding up whoever they think, right? And the Supreme Court, unfortunately, and this is another thing that's kind of just giving
Yeah.
Donald Trump carte blanche to do what he wants. Is they said that racial profiling was okay,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
It's okay as long as you're doing it to Latinos, right? So
Exactly. It's
yeah,
okay as long as you're doing it to Latinos. And let me tell you what, this is also completely dystopian because Latinos are actually driving the growth economically and socially.
oh yeah,
So
hmm,
all the numbers say it, the census,
yeah,
all the official numbers, Department of Commerce, Department of Labor, INS, everything
mhm,
supports that. And so this is really like shooting, the country on the foot. Because, if Latinos don't consume, we've heard already the CEO of big companies like Target and Walmart and Coke and Constellation Brands and all these brands saying, please stop attacking the
yeah,
community because, consumption is down. People are not going out to celebrate. They're not gathering. This is not good for the economy. But it still seems to be driven more by some kind of unjustifiable hate that
yeah,
actually acts against what this country is about, which is, openness, productivity, empowerment of the workforce, economic leadership. Why is
yeah.
that?
Unfortunately, we have some people like Stephen Miller who are just kind of racist in their beliefs and kind of think that somehow um, anybody who doesn't look like him is just shouldn't be here, doesn't belong here, and they he doesn't really understand, like you were just saying, right? The impact that the Latino community, really has on this country. I mean, you can go to any restaurant here in most of the United States, right? And you look and who's working back there, right? Who's making the meals, who's cleaning up, who is making the back of the kitchen work, right? It is the Latino community, right? Who's more entrepreneurial than any other, ethnic
Right.
group, right? The Latino community, right? That is starting small businesses that are keeping them going, that are, contributing tax dollars to this country,
And Gail, it,
whether they're documented or undocumented, right? And the document the even those that are undocumented that are contributing, right? They get no benefit from what they are contributing
one,
to the economy,
absolutely.
right? They are just
Taxation
putting it
without
in.
representation.
Right, right. So, but it is, just unfortunate that these people don't look at the big picture. They don't see it, right? And they
Yep.
don't really kind of see how that we need, immigration in this community or in our country to kind of fuel the workforce that
Yep.
is required, right?
Yep.
I mean, I've talked to farmers, I've talked to the home builders. These are the people who work. It is the Latino community that works in this environment. I talked to a farmer from New Hampshire that says, you know,
Yep.
well, maybe I'm sorry, she was from Maine, but they come here to recruit
Of
people,
course.
Latinos, to go work at the farms over there, like in the
Yep.
northeastern part of
Yep.
the United States, uh,
Yep.
in order because nobody there wants to do that, right? And so it is. we need this immigrant labor, and it helps fuel our economy. It keeps things going, and
We do.
they earn this money and they spend it here as well.
Absolutely. And Gil, it's not only the immigrant people,
Hmm.
it's Latinos at all levels. I'm going to give you some.
Yeah.
First of all, that generation of immigrants that came from the 70s all the way to the 2007,
Yeah.
when immigration started, going down, they have kids now and they were born here.
Yeah.
And those
Hmm.
kids are going to college.
Right.
And it's not anymore the labor for, farms and for construction sites.
Yeah.
It's the kids that are actually going to college. And all the statistics show it, right? We've done reports with everybody that is somebody in research. We've done 71 different reports, and all of them show, from the report that we did, the two reports that we've done with SHIP, Society of Latino Engineers, all the way to
Hmm.
the tech reports, the AI reports. Latinos are driving the growth not only at the level of immigration, they're driving the growth professionally. I'm going to give you two examples that I love. One is one of our board members, Alex Lopez Negrete. He was asked by Hyundai, which is his client, help us, because in a way, Latinos are going up in economic mobility, and they're going more towards Mercedes or towards BMWs. And he created
Right.
this campaign that is beautiful, showing the empowerment of Latinos in fancy places with beautiful homes, professionals, CEOs, etc. And the campaign has been a success. But I'm going to give you another one that you probably love. I don't know if you and your boys love football, but my boys love college football. And so I
Hmm.
remember 5 years ago, we were watching during the pandemic, college football, and we were saying, you know what, like there's no Latinos here, right? Like the water boy was a Latino and we were happy and clapping, right? Fast forward 5 years, this year, just this week,
Yeah.
of the top five contenders for the Heisman
Hmm.
Prize, three of them were Latinos.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what, this not only talks about the power as athletes or the power as leaders, because of course, quarterbacks have to be leaders. They are captains, right? But it talks about the base of kids in college. To be able to get three out of the five top contenders for the Heisman from a community that is only 20%, you
Yeah.
have to have a base of Latino students in colleges that is humongous, and a base that is extremely talented, because you got five of them. And remember, we're not the tallest, we're not the strongest sometimes, we're
Hmm.
not, we're not your stereotyped quarterback in a lot of different
Right.
ways. And there they are contending. And
Hmm.
of course, one of them won. The second place was also a Latino. And I think the fourth place was also a Latino. And
Yeah.
so that also goes back to this is an example and a photograph of college students, but it's also a photograph of what the country will be in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so that's even more shooting on the foot, because even though these kids may be born here, even though they may be DACA or citizens, they have parents and they remember what their parents are being, how their parents are being attacked, and they can't
Yeah.
be racial profiled because we're still brown, we're still, in my case, I'm an immigrant, I have an accent. So it is just so illogical, knowing that the force of this country is coming from Latinos. You know the number,
Yeah.
78% of all the new workforce will be Latino in the next 20 years, according to Department of Labor.
Hmm.
It's just not, it's not logical.
It's
That's how.
not, and again, it's not logical. It's this thing that they are doing right now is fueled by hate. It's not fueled by logic.
Absolutely.
And there is this mentality or this falsehood that they think somehow the Latino community is a burden on the country. And obviously they have never ever talked they've never come to an LDC board meeting. They've never ever read any of your reports and anything you do, kind of showing that it is the exact opposite, right? We are helping this country grow. We are helping, take this country into the future, both through education, as well as entrepreneurship and the jobs and everything that we are creating by creating business and everything, right? So it is
Absolutely.
unfortunate that there are people that just refuse to kind of pay attention and really kind of see the light. But it's like, I love this country. I am proud to be an American. I served it in uniform. I want to continue to make it better. But the hate is nothing new, right? Whether Chinese and Irish immigrants and Italian immigrants helped build this country, like in the early 19th century, and then it was, well, the mid 19th century as well, with the railroads and everything that was going on. The Latino community. Well, this used to be our country, right? It used to be part of
Exactly.
Mexico. It
Mexico.
was Mexico, right? Land was stolen away, but people continued to thrive and to kind of build,
Yep.
um, and created like successful businesses,
Yep.
that have lasted centuries, right?
Yep.
And continue, right? And we continue to build businesses. I think a friend I have who, he was working at a place and that place was closing. They took it over and they kind of turned it into, him and his brother turned it into a thriving business. Even there to my landscaper, right? The guy, one of our landscapers who saw an opportunity because who he was working for was going out of business, and he kind of took it over and kind of has been thriving and been successful, right?
Absolutely.
These are the stories that need to be told. These are the stories that people need to know about. Um, but yet people only want to focus on
Yep.
the bad, the negative, which is very, and the lies, right? Some are just kind of compounding lies into how bad
Fake
this
news.
is, or how
Fake news.
negative it is, right? And it's not. And so, but that's, look, that's why the LDC starts. That's why, what, I love being part of it, because it tells a different story and it tells the truth, really, is the impact that the Latino community really has on the United States. And we need to continue telling that story.
Yeah. And by the way, I have to thank you because you were one of the founding members, and obviously always incredible with your contributions. And I also remember from the very beginning, Gil, you mentioned how important it was your Latinidad as a leader,
Mhm.
right? You were born here. I think your parents were born here, but it's still that part of you that is Latino, that talks about family, commitment, making your
Yeah.
parents' sacrifices worth it, giving back to your kids and to your community.
Yeah.
Tell us. So I have so many questions that I wanted to do, and unfortunately, we're not gonna have too much more time. But please, I really want to address this part in your leadership, which is the Latinidad. How does your Latinidad how has it affected your leadership? And if you can also tell us a little bit about your struggles, right? Maybe facing stereotypes, or how has Latinidad benefited and made you stronger?
I think it has, right? And look, the Latino community is so broad and diverse, right? It comes in many different forms. I mean, there are so many different cultural backgrounds that we come from, so many different Latin American countries where, that have immigrated here. Um, like you, I'm Mexican, but we're two totally different Mexicans, right? Like you were born in
Mexicans.
Mexico and you immigrated here. I,
Yes.
I'm a very Americanized, Mexican, but
Like my
I'm still
husband.
very,
Yes,
yeah,
totally.
I'm still very proud of my heritage and that
Absolutely.
background, right? But I have kind of seen, like, I kind of think like, you, you know, like, I don't speak Spanish, or I speak it very badly, not good enough to say that I am. And it's something that I still struggle and kind of try to do and to do at times. But I know the story as to why I don't. It's because my mother, was not taught by her parents, because that was just in the country here at the time. That was just not a thing that you did, right? It was almost like, we don't want them talking. They told you at the schools, we don't want to hear them talking Spanish. We don't want them to know Spanish. Don't, don't
Yep.
teach your kids Spanish. And that kind of became a way where it's kind of, for a lot of people,
Yeah.
the language kind of got lost. Um,
Absolutely.
my dad, though, on the other side, his dad was like, to hell with that. I'm going to do whatever I want. And so he taught all his, or at least the older ones, even there, right? I think my, my dad knows Spanish. His two older siblings are also twins, like my kids. they learned Spanish, but his two younger siblings, my father's, they didn't learn it either, right? They didn't learn Spanish. So, but it was because, again, right, it was just part of that. We just don't teach this, don't know there. They're going to struggle in school if you did. And that's even kind of part of this false narrative that still continues,
Exactly.
with bilingual children, right? It says somehow, oh, well, it's going to affect their learning in school, the fact that they're bilingual. And it's every study after study has shown that's just not the case.
Exactly.
They may mix up words here and there, right? Kind of do a little Spanglish, but it is kind of it has been effective, right? And that's why so many people will try and get their kids into these dual language schools where they exist and are
Yeah.
thriving. But
Absolutely.
I think being my culture, being who I am, and then it really kind of has taught me a lot, right? As to what it is and the struggles and the stereotypes. Because I knew growing up, right? People look at me and nobody would ever kind of say like, "Oh, that's a college graduate." Um, I was told not to go where I went to school because I was basically told I was going to fail if I go there. And I should, go to a school that just wasn't going to be as hard, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So because there's no way I would be able to handle this work, right? And I know it because the color of my skin, right?
Yeah.
As to why I was told that. Um, so
Absolutely. It,
so it's kind of overcoming those stereotypes, trying to do this, right, is the thing. And that's why I think it is so important for me to kind of speak up on these issues, to be forward out there, and be kind of working to kind of create and help create opportunities so kids don't get left behind. Um, because we have a lot to offer, right? We have a lot to offer, and the problem is look, my parents didn't know how to navigate. They didn't know what was needed. My mom didn't even graduate from high school. Um, I told my dad what I wanted to do with my life, but he kind of was like, "Look, I'll do what I can do to help you," but really, there was nothing he could do to help me.
yep.
We don't have it's we don't have those. I didn't have the contacts, right? And now I kind of see like people that I know, and I know people that are successful. They are striving to work their kids, like create opportunities for them, get them into this internship in their high school, like connect them with their friend who, they want to be a lawyer. So I'm going to connect them with my friend who's a lawyer to kind of see if they can do
Exactly.
some work in their law
Exactly.
firm when they're in high school to kind of
Yep.
to help kind of build that resume. Um,
Yeah.
I just didn't have that opportunity. So I work and we need to kind of work in our community to help create those opportunities for people like us, right? To give them that, right? And it's even something I still kind of struggle with my own family. I tell my brother, like, you gotta, my nephew, he's got to go to work. He needs to go and he needs to kind of, he's in college right now, right? But, what does he want to do? And let's kind of work to kind of help create an opportunity for him so that he can have that and kind of start building and packing his resume because that's what, unfortunately, his white counterparts that are in college, going to college with them around, that's what they're doing. And that's what their parents are helping them kind of do. But, my dad doesn't, or my brother, I should say, just, you know, he's done great in his life and everything. And I'm very proud of him. But, he didn't go to college, so he just doesn't know how to navigate that world and kind of make it happen, right? But I kind of,
We
we need to do that, right? So we
need
need to kind of
access.
help people and give them those
Yes.
opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need to give access to the kids. We need
Mhm.
to network together so that we give each other's kids access. We
Right.
need to empower each one of those kids. This is one of the reasons why we do this podcast. This is one of the reasons why
Right.
we work, at the Latino Donor Collaborative, because that's the part that we need to build. We find that economic mobility is always there for us. We are
Right.
the ones really that have the highest support mobility, but we're not given the access yet to those seats that we've earned long ago, by the way. Right? The seats are earned. I mean, 40% of the sales of most of the consumer products come from the Latino community. 35% sometimes of the audiences in, the box office comes from the community. But we still don't get that recognition. We still don't get
Right.
the access.
Yeah.
Procurement is tiny. The seats on the boards are tiny. The
Mhm.
percentage in those places we haven't earned. And it's our job to do it. There's no other way. And it has a lot to do with stereotyping. You're so
Yeah.
right. I having had a career before I came to California in really amazing places like the White House and the United Nations, and I still sometimes in LA had to justify my accent, my
Yeah.
appearance, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, strange. Why do you live there? Or, it's like, why? Because we
Yeah.
see media, we see stereotypes, and they don't
Mhm.
reflect you or me or the
Yeah.
people in our organizations. And we need to do that. And to finish, Gil, because I could talk with you forever, but unfortunately, I know you have to go. But to finish, do you think that's your legacy? What do you see your legacy being in the future? Do you think it has to do with that kind of representation? Tell us about what you would like to see in your, in your epitaph, if
You
when
know,
that.
I haven't really kind of started thinking about that yet. I mean, I still feel like I have a long way to go, and there's still, we're still building that. But I hope when people kind of think back on me and what I did, it's like he's somebody um, who loved his country, who was committed to service, and wanted to make a difference, for people, right? And kind of really helping them succeed, whether it's doing what we've done through our foundation, or really kind of trying to do that same work to help people, while I'm in Congress.
Yeah.
I hope that's what people will say about me, right? He's just somebody who was committed to service and wanted to make a difference, and you know, put his money where his mouth is.
Yeah.
It
And you
just,
certainly.
yeah. I just didn't talk about it, right? But it was, this. There was an actual commitment and to doing what he wanted to do.
Well, I gotta tell you, I followed you in the last 11 years, and you have certainly lived by that premise. You and Jackie have lived by that premise. I am sure that your kids are sucking up that from you. I know that you volunteer in special days like Thanksgiving with your kids in places. You're showing them that other part of the world that needs help, not only in the Latino society, in the Latino community, but also in all our country. You are serving. You could be having a margarita and just enjoy life, and you
Mhm.
decide to wake up every day and put the work. And so I'm extremely proud of having you here. I am proud that you're part of my community. I'm proud of you as a friend, and I thank you so much for being with us, Gil. And I hope that this is not the last time. By the way, I hope we do this in in the near future, and you tell us good news when Congress starts moving differently, and we see how you and your colleagues are pushing to have results for all of us.
No, definitely. Thank you for having me, my friend. And it is, I cherish our friendship, and you've been a good friend to me and Jackie over the years here, and I know that will continue. And thank you for having me. And yeah, anytime, would love to come back later on and check in and see how things are going.
Thank you, Gil, and keep up the
All
good
right.
work. Thank you for the work that you do for all of us.
All right. Thank you.
And see you next episode, audience. I hope that you had as much fun as I had, talking to Congressman Cisneros today.